Good afternoon and welcome to the Day After podcast on our sub show Pixar Sunday, where we watch all of the Pixar movies in order. Today is episode 7, where we are tackling 2006's Cars, directed by John Lasseter.
Why do people hate this movie?
I was gonna say people don't hate this movie. They hate this movie.
There are people who hate this movie. I don't feel like kids hate this movie. I feel like people do hate this movie. However, I sit down and I consistently watch it, and I don't I kind of understand, but your arguments, none of the arguments I've ever heard for this movie pan out.
They don't land. You can pick very obvious targets like Larry the Cable Guy is the big one, and the slams against the capitalistic nature of the fact that they did the horrible sin of selling toys related to a movie.
Yeah, selling to and general merchandise. Like there was this whole there was a Lightning McQueen gasm that happened right after this movie that I was kind of familiar with. But when you look at the movie as it is, I don't get the hate.
Let me.
Is it it's not stellar, it's not amazing. It has problems, but God, it's not as bad as some I've seen.
But if I can, okay, I'm gonna step back. This is directed by John Lasseter, who it did one of the standard Pixar things, which is it was gonna come out earlier and then projects got shuffled, so it ended up being the 7th release of 2006. This is and I mean this very literally, John Lasseter's love letter to Americana and road trips of the 50s and 60s.
Yep.
He loves the American car. He loves the mythology around Route 66, and it shows.
And I don't know if we want to get into this right now, but kind of the message of the film. This and I said this during the big scene, the Our Town scene. This is the first movie we've talked about Pixar movies in the context of dealing with adult situations for kids, and it definitely does that. This is the first one where the conflict and the problem is not completely centered on the characters and has a wider scope. You see this very commonly in environmental films where it'd be so easy for A Bug's Life to go, oh, we live on this island, but the rest of the planet is dying. How do we save this? Humans are awful. And it doesn't do that. It's not that in your face about it, but it does speak to this weird emergence of what happens to driving culture with the construction of the interstate. If you've ever sat down and listened to your parents or maybe your grandparents talk about going for a cruise, cruising the loop, going for a drive, that had a different meaning in the 50s and 60s, and I'm hoping we're getting that time period right, in the 50s and 60s, than it does now. I mean, the interstate was a way to get from A to B very, very quickly, which is what it was designed for, and America needed that, trust me. But you get the experience and the death of these little small towns that were built along the more natural highways.
What I appreciate, and I guess I wish I had a cohesive point when I was talking about this. It does not come from a place of malice. It comes from a being in a different generation. So Lightning McQueen, you get the idea that he's a rookie, so by nature he's much younger than the other competitors. He hasn't lived in a world where that was the point of driving.
Yes.
So as much as I can bitch about Owen Wilson, which I will, I'll get to it. He doesn't come from a bad place. Yes, he's stuck up, but he doesn't think that driving to have fun is objectively worse than driving to win.
Right, it's just something completely beyond his realm of experience, which I feel like is true with a lot of kids who are growing up watching this movie. Very rarely, even in even in the Midwest where we live, do people just drive to have fun.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a thing you really, really did back then.
I love movies that are lots of good things, lots of bad things. So if that's my criteria, this is one of the best Pixar movies to talk about because there are issues.
Yeah, and there are issues. This movie is better than most people get it credit for, but there are problems.
You need to go back and watch it. Let me just tackle my point, but then I'm going to go cut myself under right now. I began the movie fucking detesting Owen Wilson. I understand that.
Interesting. It's almost like they wanted you to.
Oh, okay. Stank acknowledged. Lightning McQueen, the character, okay. Owen Wilson, I'm sorry. You gave a whatever performance, but Lightning McQueen suffers from what I called season 1 Robin. Is that I thought I hated Lightning McQueen because I thought how he was in the first 10-15 minutes is how he is the entire movie. And that is not the case, and that is unfair to his character arc. I think that I was gonna say Owen Wilson is a bad fit for this role, but then like who else would you want? Like if if Mike Wazowski is not by Billy Crystal, who else would you want him to be?
Yeah, and I think that's fair. I think Owen Wilson does a fine job, and John and I were talking about this. I'm much more okay with Lightning McQueen's character than he is. I feel like he does something different from Woody, and I appreciate that because Woody is not an abject asshole. But the plot of Toy Story is not from Woody to grow as a person. It has a different track, whereas the whole plot of Cars is for Lightning McQueen to go from a sarcastic, just undeniable asshole into a decent car. I would say human being, but I can't.
Okay. Well, I am gonna try to avoid the plot armor argument I have for as long as I can. I had a complaint that it's okay for a character to start out very blunt and one note if these movies are for kids, because it shows character growth, and some people the complexities of character growth they don't have to be that smooth a transition. But I think part of what is hindered by the clunkiness of his transition, he's not making a round turn as much as he is making all these janky, like, slow movements. I think part of that is because this movie has a really bad pacing problem.
Yeah, I can say that. One more thing about Lightning McQueen's character, and
please,
then we can drop it.
Please do.
I had cousins who were under 10 when this movie came out.
Holy shit.
Lightning McQueen was their god.
Your cousin was 5 when this movie came out. I'm an old shit.
And I'm just like, say what you want about Lightning McQueen, about how, like, oh, he's a shit-ass character, and, like, yes, he grows, but he takes too long, whatever. Kids adore him. Boys especially.
I don't think I keep saying sarcastic asshole. I don't think sarcastic asshole maybe a little bit, but he's definitely very full of himself in a straight way that people can understand.
This movie came out 14 years ago. My 6-year-old nephew loves Lightning McQueen.
Okay, that's incredible.
Right?
Your nephew is 6, and he knows. Oh wow!
And granted, this movie's had sequels, and we're not going to talk about those. But yeah. I'm just saying, like, you can still. I went clothes shopping with my sister for him. There's still merchandise.
Which is
There's toys, there's clothing, there's all kinds of stuff. So, say what you want about Lightning McQueen and his character. Either it works for you or it doesn't. It works for me. I totally understand the argument that it doesn't for some people. But he is amazingly popular.
You could bitch about this being a corporate made to sell toys excuse, but it came from the heart of John Lasseter's fucking love for Route 66.
Right. See our first point.
Yeah, see point number 1.
Mater sucks.
No. Why am I saying no?
Mater doesn't suck. He's an okay character. He's in the movie too much. And going back to John's pacing problem, this movie is too long.
This movie clocks in at what Google gave it to me in decimals. It's 1.93 hours. So
it's an hour 56.
It's way too long. We something clicked in our rage brain or whatever. That scene where they go out to go tractor tipping.
Oh god, that scene is horrible. It is absolutely horrible.
To say nothing about the other elements of that scene, it freezes the plot in place to have a scene that doesn't impact anybody, contains many fart jokes, and reinforces this hillbilly stereotype that I think is holding this movie down.
Yeah, and this movie is very fat. This movie, again, could do with like a half an hour less runtime. And unfortunately, it's not his fault, but unfortunately, a lot of the scenes that are too long and too fat contain Mater.
And you're right, it's not his fault, but I need to be mad at something.
And I don't think it's a part on Larry the Cable Guy. I think that they thought having that all-star hillbilly kind of wacky guy was gonna give them more leeway than it gave
more hype
me
for the movie. You mean? Okay. I don't know.
He's not well handled.
He's not well.
To not use any.
I don't want I tried very hard as I was thinking about what I wanted to say here to make sure that I didn't touch on the big things that people think about when they think about cars, which is the commercialism and Mater.
Right.
And
but they are things that need to be addressed.
Okay, but I think there's deeper things that people need to think about. Not deep like, you missed the subtext, but other things that you can talk about with this movie.
Right, and we're gonna try to dive deep in this review. By the way, if you're here for like, oh, how do cars make babies?
No, it's time.
We're done.
It's time for me to bitch about this.
We're not doing any of that.
Yes, it is funny when Jello Apocalypse has his joke about how his least favorite movie is Cars, and he just asks questions ad nauseum about, was there a car Hitler? What kind of a car was Hitler? Was there a Holocaust? Do cars make babies? Where are the humans? I don't care. You guys are opening up these hypothetical questions, which is okay when you point out the absurdity of those questions when you take things logically. What I do not appreciate is that being used as a valid form of criticism against this movie.
Right, yes, to take a nitpicky role in this. The thing I will say about those kind of little digs against the movie, it can take you out of the world, and I do totally respect that. There are people who, that's a deal breaker, that these questions going unanswered takes you out of the world and doesn't allow you to absorb it. And that's fine. Don't watch it. But, like, make that your criticism. Don't be like, oh, this movie leaves so much unanswered. Talk about lazy writing. No, it's not trying to.
I don't like, and I've said my piece already, I don't like that questions about how the world would work CinemaSins style is not criticism. I'm giving it to you, CinemaSins. You're not criticism. Eat a dick.
Yeah.
But that we're not here for that. I know we just spent 90 seconds talking about it, but we interrupt the show to bring you the Day After podcast, a show where we bring up stuff we forgot about yesterday and didn't realize until it was 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Welcome to Pixar Mainstays, where we discuss all of the things that show up in every Pixar film. John Lasseter plays Mac the Truck, a very affable young man who is forced by shitty Act 1 Lightning McQueen to do stuff he doesn't want to do.
Max, I kind of like Mac. It's like kind of his only friend, and then he's his pit boss later. It's fucking awesome.
He is the pit boss?
Yeah, he's crew chief.
Well,
he's his crew chief until the Hornet shows up, and he's like his entire pit crew.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's like, thank you so much for being my pit crew, Mac. And he's like, yeah, well, you know.
You kind of just told everybody else to fuck off.
Yeah.
By the way, really quick, at the beginning when he says, thanks for everything, Chuck. My name's not Chuck. The guy who screams that line is credited in the film as not Chuck.
I love it.
The A113 is on the face of a train that almost fucking flatlines McQueen
Lightning.
as he is on the middle of a darkened road, which has got to be really lonely to be a train in that universe. And the Pizza Planet truck shows up as a very enthusiastic fan. Stage left at the beginning of the announcer segment of the final race and the final act.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Wow, I didn't know it was that late. Cool.
Yeah, but he is there, and he's so excited to be there. I wish I could play more video, but he is having the time of his life.
Yes.
I want to apologize for everybody who likes this movie because of the really deep NASCAR references, because they are everywhere.
Yes.
And we are so not in the culture that...
I knew Daryl Cartrip.
When they said...
That one I knew.
That was Daryl Wartrip, yeah. They were bringing up names for these fun facts, and I only knew about half the names. There's the easy shit, like Dale Earnhardt Jr. voices Jr., and Michael Schumacher Ferrari is Michael Schumacher.
Michael Schumacher Ferrari.
I mean, guys, did you know Jay Leno voices a character in this movie called Jay Limo?
That's cute.
But even deeper on the reference, there's stuff like when Chick Hicks wins by disregarding the fact that the king spun out, and then he goes to accept his prize and everybody calls him a shithead, Pixar style. That actually happened to somebody who won a race in, I think, 2007 because he did one of those it's kind of unsportsmanlike to kind of cop tap the car so it spins out.
Yeah, that's called getting them loose.
Is it really?
Yes.
Okay, but I know nothing.
I had a family who was a big NASCAR fan. So
and it was a very cheap shot that late in the game, so they booed him and it wasn't a good show.
Yeah.
And
all of the RVs in the inner part, that's totally a real thing. A lot of the time it's the drivers or their crew or whatever, they stay there.
The Pixar car the Pixar car. Jesus Christ. The car with the horns on its as a hood ornament. The long horns.
Oh yeah.
The one who says, "Hey, you can come be Dinoco." He's based on a real guy, and I can go on and on and on. But
I also think the King is kind of loosely based on Kyle Petty.
Yes, I believe it might be Kyle Petty. It's
just because of the color scheme of the car. You know, Dinoco in Toy Story was green.
Well, guys. I appreciate the reference, John Lasseter. You did great about the reference here and your love for the sport and the craft, but it goes as deep as this character has the same font on his number as a famous driver.
Well, yeah. And again, I thought that was a nod to it. And even if you don't follow NASCAR, it's enough to make your brain go, where have I seen that before?
Oh, yeah, it is. The last point I want to bring up, because the only thing that I really regret not bringing up yesterday is I really like Rascal Flatts in this movie. You would think that would be, because let me just set a baseline, okay? I detest in the movie Wreck-It Ralph when the montage of her learning to drive is set to that woman's song, Shut Up and Drive. I find it that it dates the movie horribly. And
yet this is okay.
It is okay.
Because reasons.
Because this movie did well. Like...
What?
No, okay.
What?
No.
Sorry for clipping.
This song...
What?
This song was everywhere. Still is.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because of who I'm married to, but I sing that to myself all the time for no reason.
I'm just saying that, like, Rascal Flatts did a cover for this movie of a song that was written in 1991 by Tom McClure.
And it doesn't feel like a pop song. Like, it fits perfectly.
Yeah, because it's sung by a country artist boy band.
Okay.
Which is fine. Like, I don't have anything wrong with Rascal Flatts, like a lot of people. But...
Apparently, I'm not allowed to...
I'm just saying you're not allowed to like... I'm saying why this pop song and not any of the others.
Okay.
Like, you don't like the opening.
That one sucks.
Yeah. See? What I'm just saying is you're hypocrite.
No, what I'm saying is the bar for pop songs in animated features is so low that when I meet something like Rascal Flatts' Life is a Highway... that sets the theme of the events that you're about to watch perfectly.
Yeah, but it occurs like 20 minutes into the movie.
Well, who cares where it happens? If it was the finale and they started playing Life as a Highway, I would shoot myself.
I can't freaking figure out what makes a pop song okay to you.
When it's utilized, not Megamind playing Bad to the Bone every act.
That happened once, but whatever.
I don't know.
I'm not going to fight with you about it.
I'm not going to fight about Megamind.
I loved Rascal Flatts when I was a kid, and kind of at the height of their popularity, and then I got out of my country phase.
Guys, this has been our act break, our commercial break. This has been the Day After podcast. We now return you to our regularly scheduled program.
There better be some weird-ass Exponent shit on there.
You said this movie was like a bigger movie? Like it was...
Yeah, so it deals with bigger things other than the little character things. A character finding himself, a character changing himself, a character proving himself. Lightning McQueen has a character growth, and that is important, but you are dealing with this wider problem of we no longer live in the 1950s, and some people don't know how to deal with that.
With the promotion of time, the procession forward of time,
yes,
resulted in James Taylor covering what I had forgotten was such an emotionally impactful scene. I apologize for using this analogy while we were watching the movie. I said this is their second whack at a Jesse scene, and by that what I mean is the scene to give more background and context to the situation and understand that things happen that aren't I don't want to say that make you sad, but
but things do change, times do change, and that's anything an adult watching this movie knows very well, and that a kid doesn't fully appreciate but can still understand. And again, that's Pixar treating its audience with respect, which I really love.
But I think that this scene is on par with Jesse's story because it is a, like, you guys like Up, right? It's a dialogueless, emotional... It fills in background information. It's emotionally effective. It's shot well. I feel like I forgot it was here.
Yeah, and sorry we opened up with that, just kind of like referencing the Our Town scene, and now we're digging into it. But
James Taylor, by the way,
this is how we go with this podcast.
Over and over. We apologize for The Incredibles being 40 minutes long. This movie looks beautiful.
Oh my gosh.
So...
the little subtle reflections, the little lights, and it's just...
John Lasseter, being the head that he was when he directed this, he he loves when they tackle new topics to do like this boot camp. So like for example, Ratatouille, they went to a culinary class and they learned how to make shit and they talked to animators. In this case, they took them all on a trip through Route 66 while they were researching and looking at things that they love doing that. The reflections on everything are beautiful, and animation has 12 principles, and one of them is squash and stretch, where things are allowed to impart more energy to move and to squish together. Cars can't do that because they're made of metal, so they were not struggling. They had to get really inventive with how to move the cars to give them a sense of human nature.
And it's kind of amazing that you chose to do, and we talked a little bit about this last time, to anthropomorphize something that is not either already alive or already semi-anthropomorphic. Like toys, like bugs.
They said that they chose, unlike every other car animation, to put the eyes on the windshield instead of the headlights, because they felt that putting them on the headlights made them too snake-like. As if they were laying on the ground, which I think is a good touch.
Yeah, I mean, it works, and it's consistent. That's kind of all I want.
It's such a good touch that I swear to God, I'm not joking about this. The first time I saw Cars, I left the mall, went into the parking lot, and my brain was seeing characters in all of the cars that were in the lot. It was very surreal.
Right on.
Okay.
I know we talked about the art towns, and I don't want this podcast to go on too long, but I do want to give a slight nod of appreciation to the scene right before that, where he and Sally are driving through this little winding canyon pathway up to the old Wheelwell Hotel, and then she tells him the story of what this town used to be in the heyday. And it struck me as they're driving through this gorgeous landscape, very much like what you drive through in California on Highway 1. Lightning McQueen has never driven on a road that is not a racetrack.
And that, again, is not him being discriminatory.
Yeah, that's not his fault. He's not like, oh, race cars are better than everyone, but da-da-da-da. His view and experience of the world is teeny tiny, like a kid's. Interesting note in this one, this is one of the only Pixar movies that doesn't have a child, which is amazing. And so you're only viewing this. That's why Lightning McQueen is so immature. That's why he's an asshole. That's why he's sarcastic. That's why his frame of reference is tiny, because a kid's frame of reference is tiny. This is their viewpoint, and that's why kids love him. Because he's a viewpoint taken seriously, and that has a true growth that I think all kids kind of want and strive for.
So if there's one thing that I want out of this movie, it is to remove probably 4 or 5 scenes.
Yeah.
And to smooth out his character transition, because he's a dick, and then he takes a big step down, and he gets a little better. Then he takes a bigger step down, and he's finally fine.
Yeah, he keeps trying to revert back to his old ways, which I'm like, I get it. That's more realistic. It drags the movie down.
I appreciate that there are 12, I assume, different characters in Radiator Springs.
Ish, yeah.
They're wide and varied, but they're all fairly one note. And I feel like there are scenes that get drug out because Fillmore has to say a hippie thing, and then Sarge has to say an army thing, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
The Cheech car has to say some stuff about riding low or whatever.
Yeah. It's the characters are kind of one note. I do appreciate the way they're handled though, because to give them any more characterization would drag the movie down even more.
And it's already too long. It's
already too long.
I don't like giving movies more time if they can't prove that they're going to use it in good places. So I can see why you don't want to do that more often. Doc Hudson is a very good character.
Yes, and I know we're super controversial when we say that. And I love. Can we talk about that scene in the garage?
You may.
Well, one of my favorite scenes of this is where Lightning gets to show a little bit of teeth, where he finds out, oh my gosh, Doc Hudson's the Hudson Hornet, and Doc kind of belittles him by like saying, oh, you didn't want my advice, you didn't care about me until you found out I was a racer, and now all of a sudden you have a different tune. You're exactly what I hate about racing culture and everything, and you know, and he tells the story of his big crash and whatever. And Lightning's like, Doc's like, you know, this never changes. It's you don't belong here. And he's like, me? What about you? You've been lying to these people from the second you came into this town.
That is,
are you really any better? Are you trying to take a moral high ground here?
and I like the complex immaturity of Doc is that instead of trying to argue that point, he kind of he doesn't have a response prepared, so he just get the hell out of my office.
And then of course he turns around, and that's a nice
it's so
nice
good.
scene at the end. But I love that. I love that drama between them of the rookie and the old hat, which should be so overdone. It's really handled well here. Not so much the sequels.
Okay, we'll get there. I like that Owen Lightning can banter back at Doc Hudson, because to not do that would maybe give the wrong impression that the motif or the lesson here that the young people have to learn from old people, and young people don't have the experience to give anything back.
Right, and that's not the case at all.
And it's good that he points out a character flaw.
Yeah.
That would otherwise go unnoticed and show up in like nitpicky internet articles.
Yeah. I think we better move on to final thoughts before we start spinning our wheels.
Why do I like the horse puns in My Little Pony, but the car puns here make me want to punch a wall?
Because My Little Pony is only 25 minutes long.
And it did run for 9 seasons. Oh my god, guys! Wow, I'm impressed. We're gonna come in under 20 minutes. This is so good, guys. Please go watch it again. Don't keep pressing the Larry the Cable Guy button.
Yeah, like I don't get the stank. Say what you want about the sequels. Yes, the sequels have we'll get there.
We will not talk about them.
However, the original movie, go back and give it a shot. Keep an open mind. I really don't think it's worth all the stank.
It's if you got to get over the puns.
Yeah.
But this has been Cars by Pixar. Even the worst Pixar movie is still a decent animated movie, which I like.
Yeah.
But thank you for joining us. Join us in 1 week where we are tackling 2007's Ratatouille.
Yay, rat cooking things.
Oh my god, not as much merch. I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to cook something, maybe.
Nice.
Yeah.